Hello, welcome to my capstone presentation. My name is Austin, and my capstone type is create and build. So my inquiry question is, how can I use my ideas to create an enjoyable and immersive video game experience for players? So let's first start with my design thinking process. So I needed to define a need. So the problem was I wanted to solve boredom, right, by creating video games that players can play. And another problem was that I found that there was a lack of video games that include pixel art, so that I also wanted to include that. My audience, I wanted to cater to an audience that enjoyed the more casual side of gaming. And how I knew my needs were met was when I would be able to finish the game. So that included a start and end, the actual gameplay, and a motive or a final goal that you wanted to reach. So how did I come up with my ideas? Well, simply like I'm only a one-man team, so I wanted to create something simple. So I started with a 2D platformer. An example would be this one here, and it's simple because we're only dealing with two dimensions, and we're only dealing with basically left and right. There's not much up and down. I also wanted to create one where you would kill enemies and a counter would go up because this was a simple idea, anyone could understand it. And I also wanted to create a leveling system, and as I explained earlier, I wanted to include pixel art. And here, this is another example of a game that is kind of a 2D platformer, except the camera makes it so it looks kind of 3D, but the gameplay is only on a 2D field. And as you can see, pixel art, even though it's just pixels, you can still expand the graphics into making it look something really nice. So here is a drawing of what I was envisioning, right? So here you have the player that was holding a sword, and here's an enemy. This is the enemy's health bar. You go and kill it, and when you kill it, this counter goes up. So right now it's 20. If you kill this, it'll go to 21, and there will be a leveling system, which I actually later did not implement because I thought it was quite redundant. And here is a health bar, and yeah, this is just the ground. So my prototype and test, and here I'll just show you the game. Here is the actual game engine that I use. So I will build and run the game to demonstrate. So here's the start screen, and here's the actual game. So here I'll just explain. Here you kill the enemies, and on the top left is my health bar. And the red bar above the enemies here, it's actually its health bar, except I made it one shot just for this demonstration. And on the top right, you can see that there's a counter for how many enemies you have killed. And the slimes actually spawn faster, but I'll just die here just to show you when it ends. It ends when your health goes to zero, and that's basically game over. And for testing, well, I am the tester of the game, and for the things that I'll improve on, I'll talk about in my reflection. So, what went well? I thought that my code organization went well, and I was able to quickly find solutions to my problems by searching them online. And since many of my problems have actually been commonly experienced by other people, it was easier to find its solutions. However, I could also, for my possible improvements, I also thought I could have improved my organization. As an example here, if I these are basically the folders that I use to organize my stuff. And if you go in here, some of these parts, some of this is actually quite messy. I try to organize it as best as I can, but the problem is that after a long break, let's say I had a break of 2 to 3 weeks or even a month from my capstone, I come back and it would take me an hour to just figure out where I left off and where I was and even what I wrote. And I would actually have to reread my code just to understand what I wrote a month ago. So I thought that could have been organized better. And another improvement I thought was that I could have matched my art better. So here, I it looks quite similar because everything is made of pixel art, but actually this player here and the grass is from completely different artists and separate art designs. Since I made it simple, it's kind of hard to see the art design difference, but if you look closer, there it is quite different. And the more complicated my game is, the more that difference will be easier to spot. So that's something else I can also improve on. So let's look at my timeline of events. So in the November, I just came up with the idea. I was actually sifting through many ideas, but I landed on this one just because it was simple. So on screen, some time lapse of another one of my ideas I tried to experiment with, but I actually just ended up scrapping the idea because I thought it was too complicated to understand and work with. In December, I had to find art to use, and I actually like to find art first because I actually feel like that is the harder thing to do. The coding portion is actually not as hard as finding the art. So in December, I found art and also started development, which is the coding portion. So here is the folder with all my scripts, which is basically my code. It is quite a lot, but I basically wrote 95% of this pre-February or during February. And here, I'll just go through some of them here and and here, for example. These are not that long, but combined, all of these probably took me easily around 30 to 40 hours. So I'll scroll through some more of these. And in February, I actually implemented this art. In December, everything looked quite bare, but in February, I actually implemented the art and that made it look much nicer. And in April, I just completed the game. So I just created a start menu, the game over menu, and on screen will be a time lapse of me doing that, just the April completing the game part. And in this time lapse, I created the start menu, I created the end menu, cleaned up some of the UI, and yeah, basically just polished and finished it. So the answer to my inquiry question. So my inquiry question again is how can I use my ideas to create an enjoyable and immersive video game experience for players? And one of the first things I use is the incremental counter, which is at the top right on my screen. And this incremental counter introduces some competitiveness to the game. And us humans really like to see numbers going up. An example would be Cookie Clicker, right? All you do is just try to get as many cookies as you can, and it's a really simple game. You just want the numbers to go up, and somehow that captivated many people in the world. Another technique I used is to create a simple and understandable game but make it multifaceted. So an example would be chess, right? It's a simple game. You can learn the rules in 5 minutes. However, at the professional level and higher level, it's multifaceted. There's many variables you have to consider, and it gets really complicated. And this creates a wider audience because it's easier to pick up, but if you want to take it seriously, it's also really fun. And the last thing was just the art. So an example would be Octopath Traveler. I thought the art was really nice because it was pixel art, but they used some lighting techniques to create shading and really nice lighting designs. So that's the end of my capstone presentation, and thanks for listening.